I am so excited about today's demo. We're going to be animating Goo-boy by Earthling Keith Vincent. And this was created by Keith several years ago when he was just learning After Effects. And now he works for Universal Kids and he is animating in After Effects almost every day. This guy has done character animations and designs for Google, Android. He worked for Mixtape Club for a while. He has been inside the Google building in New York City. He's a lovely person. So hi Mia, hi Angel, hi Reiko. Welcome. It's great to see you. The files are in the chat. You can download those. They are on Google Drive. If you have any issue downloading them, just let me know. All right. So this character was designed in Illustrator. And no worries if you don't know Illustrator yet. That's the key word, yet. I'm going to talk you through what's here. And once we bring it into After Effects, it's going to be able to be animated like any other character. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to build it up from the bottom. So we've got his left foot, his right foot, his hands, or rather his arms. His body is all one chunk, including like all the little bits of shine and stuff. So each of these little bits of shine is its own little piece, but that's all within the body layer, okay? Then he's got these little blobs on top, and he's got his eyes, and I've created a little blink for him as well. And the blink is just a simple one-frame blink, aw. And he's got a mouth, and he's got an eyebrow, a unibrow. I used to have one when I was little. So let me show you what it is we're gonna make. I have the finished little animation here. This is what he looks like. And just a moment. Okay, and we're going to be setting him up in After Effects with this little background. Yes, those are poker chips in case if you're wondering. And we're going to give him a little drop shadow. It's going to be super cute. Okay, now I had originally animated this little guy when I taught After Effects Level 1 at NYU. Let me show you this finished After Effects project here of what I had put together for that class. Sorry, it's opening up. I had to restart. Okay, if you wouldn't mind just posting in the chat about any experience you might have with character animation, any questions you might have about character animation, especially in After Effects. Oh, hi, Austin. Welcome. And I would be happy to answer those questions for you. Okay, so I'm opening up that project. Here he is, Mr. Goo-boy. I said, here he is, Mr. Goo-boy. Here he comes. Check, check, check. And it doesn't want to open, so I'm going to have to track in. Sorry, guys. Oh, there's an error on one of my screens, I bet. There we go. Yeah. Now he's coming. He's coming. All right, so this is what he looks like in his pre-animated state. Okay, and I set him up with some blinks that are on opacity keyframes on hold. So they basically switch on and off. Then he's got just rotation and some scale and a little bit of position on his different body parts, okay? There's a tiny bit of delay on his scale compared to the rest of his body. And there is some parenting. So parenting is the process where you connect layers together so that one layer follows another. And they only follow certain things, just like how real children only follow certain aspects of what their parents want them to do. So just like real children, children in After Effects inherit, like, okay, so here's the metaphor. Mom is in the mall with her kids, okay? They're attached to her by leashes. It happens. And the children have to follow wherever the mother is. So the way that I have this set up, all of these layers mostly are parented to the body, which means that if I take the body layer and move it around, see how these other layers travel with it, okay? So the position of the parent determines somewhat the position of the children. The children can have their own independent movement, just like how we have independent children, you know, our children move around us when they're attached to us by leashes. And then they inherit the position. They also inherit rotation of the parent, and they inherit scale of the parent. But there's two things they don't inherit. And those are the same two things that real parents and children don't move off from. So, for example, this is true story. I have allergies. My children don't have allergies. So if the parent has allergies, also known as Gaussian blur, the parent will blur the heck out, just like in a Woody Allen film, but the children stay sharp, right? So effects don't transfer from parent layers to child layers. In addition, another thing that doesn't transfer from parent layers to child layers is opacity. So this is kind of like when a parent passes, the child doesn't automatically pass away as well. So the children will continue to follow the ghost of their parent, actually. So the parent could lose opacity and the child layers will continue to follow it around, which is kind of creepy. I'm sorry, but now you'll never forget. Parent layers pass along position, scale, and rotation to their children. They do not pass along effects or opacity, all right? We are cool. So I've used a considerable amount of color coding. I love my color coding. Color coding makes my life so much easier so that I can just keep track of my layers. One unfortunate thing about After Effects is that you can't make folders. You can't make folders to put things in. Other animation programs are much friendlier when it comes to that kind of thing. You can make folders. Here you can't. Why? Because After Effects hasn't really been updated that much in like 30 years. Anyways, that's a separate topic for another time. So as you can see, I don't have that many keyframes going on here. I have basically just a few different poses that my character is taking throughout its life. So it's got this over to one side, arms out pose, and then it's got the stand, which is sort of the in-between, and then it's got the arms out over to the other side, okay? And when the arms are out to this side, it's squashed, and when the arms are out to the right side, it is stretched. Yes, our friends squash and stretch. All right, set this up, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna throw all this stuff into its own folder. If you have a project open, you might want to close that project so that you have a fresh start. But I'm going to leave this here for our reference. Oh, welcome, Erica. Alrighty, so I'm going to, so you would probably want to close your project. I'm not gonna. I am, however, going to create what I have lovingly called a dummy comp. So before I import any layered file, I create an empty composition with the right frames per second and the right duration so that the next thing I import comes in with those settings. So I do composition new, and you could just call it dummy as in mannequin. And right here, frame rate, I usually animate at 30 or 24. It's up to you how you want to animate. I'll do 24 this time. Hey, why not? And this whole thing doesn't need to be longer than 5 seconds long. Now, if you're showing frames instead, then you got to do a little bit of something. So hit OK. and you see this time code counter here. If you're on a Mac, you're going to command click it, and if you're on a PC, you're going to control click it, and it's going to switch over. Okay, so we want to be in time code just so that we get the 5 seconds thing, and we're going to go to composition settings and just set that to 500. Okay, all right, and again, those files are located in your live chat. Oh, hi Mary, it's nice to see you. I'm going to now delete the dummy comp. I know, like, why did I bother making it? The whole reason I bothered making it, friends, was because I wanted to reset the default. The default setting for importing a layered file is whatever the last comp used, which is terrible and not useful. So we are just going to delete this guy because he's not our friend anymore. Well, he was, but his use is over. So I just click his name in the project window. I hit the delete key. Bye-bye. And then I'm going to import my file. Okay. And you are going to have to unzip it. Sorry, guys. And let me just locate my Goo-boy. There you are, Goo-boy. And I've got my asset, Goo-boy-anim. So you should see my process for designing. Anim is the last step. So I'll have all these versions that have tons and tons of layers. And then when it's animation ready, I put -anim. Okay, so this step is critical. And if you have questions as we're going along, just drop them into the chat. Happy to answer them. If you're watching the replay, drop them into the comments. All good. And so we have to import this a very special way. Otherwise, it's going to be annoying to animate. Not impossible, just annoying. I am assuming that this is final art. So I'm going to select this guy. Okay, and down at the bottom where it says import as, I'm going to choose composition, retain layer sizes. Now, if there's a chance that I might want to go back in and fuss with the layer or something, you better believe I am not choosing that version. I would choose composition instead. Retain layer sizes assumes you're not going to go back in and mess with the dimensions of each layer or the basic size of each layer. Okay. And if you're not seeing this option, you might be on a Mac, and the Mac might have hidden your options from you, which means there's this little sneaky options button which you have to click in order to reveal all of this. Turn off any checkboxes that are showing. They're not your friend, and then you're going to hit import. Okay? All right, so here be Goo-boy. Hi, Goo-boy, you are cute. All right, so I'm going to set this up with anchor points and parenting and a null object, okay? Just going to sneak a peek at my old version just to make sure that I'm not forgetting anything here, okay? So inside in here, I had everything parented to the body except for the feet and the body, because you can't be your own parent. That's not a thing. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether you do anchor points first or parenting first. I just like to do the anchor points first so that I don't forget. Because if the anchor points are set badly, the character is going to rotate from some weird places and it's going to be terrifying. Okay, so I select all my layers, Command or Control A. And I'm going to hit letter T for opacity so that I can see all of the opacity values at once. And I'm going to click on the opacity value and I'm going to change it to 50. Now the reason I change it to 50 is so that I can see all of the overlap areas, okay? The overlap areas are important because I want to make sure my anchor points or the pivots for each layer are set to where that body part overlaps with other body parts or where I want that body part to rotate from, okay? So let's select the brow. To change the anchor point, you're going to select this pan behind or anchor point tool, and then you can click and drag it to where you want it to move, rotate, and scale from. Now, I thought that the eyebrow looked kind of cute when it was set over on one side. Okay, and then I thought that the mouth looked really cute when it was set to like right here. I may or may not animate the mouth, but if I choose to, I want it to animate from a cute spot. Okay, The eyes don't really need anchor points to be set necessarily, though you can get a lot of emotion out of eyes. So since they are separate layers, hey, why not? You can always zoom in on this using your trackpad or your scroll wheel on your mouse, either or. And all this I'm doing with the anchor point tool. Now again, if you have any questions, just drop them into the chat and I will answer them as they come up. I'm like constantly looking over to see how my stream is going and if you guys have questions, okay? So this guy too, I'm gonna set his anchor over here and this guy over here. And my anchor points sometimes like have a mind of their own. Like, look at this one. Like, where did it go? I don't know. So I have to go layer menu, transform, center, anchor point, and layer content because it got lost. And then I can just move it back, right? Okay. And as I mentioned in the description of this particular lesson, I'm not actually going to be using any rigging system for this. So no joysticks and sliders, no Duick, no bendy limbs, no rubber hose. Yes, these are the actual names of plugins for character animation. Don't judge. They're actually really good ones. So I'm going to take the zoom tool and zoom in here to do these guys. But back to why I'm not using those rigging systems. You can actually get a decent amount of mileage out of just really basic keyframe animation in After Effects, and you gotta start somewhere. Like, I didn't just dive into the deep end of the swimming pool the first time I went swimming, neither did you. So let's start somewhere and then kind of work our way up, okay? And in a future lesson, I'll get you into that other rigging stuff, no probs. So I'm just changing the anchor points of these here blobs so that they're at the bottom, like little base area. So almost as if they are petals or leaves. And then I got to do the body. Now the body is interesting. The body, I'm going to put it right here at sort of the base of the big blob. And then the hands are going to go at their shoulders. And here's this hand right here. Okay. And then the feet, actually, I'm going to put up here. Okay. Now, some of you may be slightly horrified to see that the feet are not actually attached to the body. I know, that's kind of creepy, right? But I do that on purpose so that I have the most flexibility when it comes to my animation. I'm going to select everything and change the opacity back to 100%. Austin agrees with me in the chat over there. You don't need Duick, etc. to get into animating characters. Hallelujah. All right. So I'm going to do a little bit of color coding. Okay. So the brow and the mouth, I'm going to change their color code to something that stands out. Yellow works well. The left and right eye blink are going to be set to a contrasting color. These guys are also going to be something that stands out, and so on. The blobs are going to get their own color. And I'm doing this just by clicking on these different layers. And see this little luggage tag section right here? I'm clicking on that little color block to change the color there. So the body is orange, the hands are going to be green, and the feet, I could just leave the feet at the default color. Okay, so here's how we're gonna connect everybody. We're gonna select all the parts of the body except for the feet. So the way I do it, click the first, shift click the last, and then hold the Command or Control key down and deselect the body. Okay, now for this step, you're going to need your parent and link column showing, and you better have all these guys swiveled closed, because if they're not swiveled closed, you know what happens? You accidentally end up connecting random other stuff, and it is not pretty. So that's one of the gotchas of the parent and link column, is that you can connect other aspects of your layers together, and you don't need to do that for this. We just want to parent them, you know, position, rotation, scale. That's it. That's all I want to connect. Now, if you're not seeing the parent and link column, no problem. I mean, pretend I can't see it either. You're going to right click where it says layer name or source name, doesn't matter. Right click or control click, go to columns and choose parent and link. And again, making sure everything's collapsed and all my layers except for layer 10, 13, and 14 are selected. I'm going to grab this little pick whip. Someone told me, what is that, a pig whip? I said, no, it's a pick whip. We're very humane here. We take that pick whip, we drag it to the body layer, and we release the mouse, okay? And yeah, all those guys are good to go. The foot left and right are going to be left as is. And I'm going to create a null object for everything to connect to. Where was my null object in my original? My null object, friends, was down in the middle center. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So I go to Layer Menu, New, Null Object. Now, if you've never used a null object before, you're going to enjoy this. It is like an invisible helper friend that you can connect other layers to. Okay, so it will be like the parent of all the layers, but nobody gets to see it because it's only visible to you while you're in After Effects and then nowhere else. Pretty nice. So there's my null object, and I'm going to take my null object and I'm going to move it down to the bottom like floor. So let me zoom in, and it's going to be right in between the little guy's feet. Okay, and I'm going to take anything that is not connected. So that means the body and the feet. I'm going to connect those to the null object. All right, fabulous. So that is ready. And I'm noticing that this composition is a little bit small. So I'm going to go to my composition settings and I'm going to change the dimensions. So this is how you change the dimensions in After Effects. And composition settings is very similar to canvas size when you're working in Photoshop. So my friends who are like, oh, I miss Photoshop so bad, Kalika, what are you doing to me? Well, this is canvas size. So you unlock the aspect ratio and you're going to change the width and height here. So we could change the width and height to like, let's do like 600. Okay, 600 by 600. And if you have the little preview box turned on, it's going to expand around that and show you the result, usually. Mine's not. But then you want to go over to Advanced and click, and that's just the next tab over next to Basic. You're just going to click that down arrow, okay? Now I'm doing this on purpose because his null object is between his feet. When I scale him up, he's going to grow from his heels. So this is intentional, okay? And again, composition settings is located inside of your composition menu. I hit OK. I'm going to zoom out using a good old fit, and I had changed it to 600 by 600. And I can just select the null object, hit S for scale, and just drag the scale value bigger. Now notice I am not dragging from the corner of my null object. Dragging things to make them bigger in scale in After Effects, seriously guys, it's for chumps. Why? Because After Effects is just a jerk when it comes to scaling things. If you are dragging the corner, like in normal Adobe programs, you hold shift and you start dragging the corner and it's like, oh yeah, you want to stay proportional. Here, when I hold shift and then drag, it thinks I'm trying to deselect. I know, really annoying. So what I do instead is I either drag the corner, then hold shift, and then it's like, oh look, you want to make it bigger. And I say, yeah, totally. Or I just go into the scale value itself, S for scale, remember? And I just drag that scale value bigger or smaller. So I'm going to do nothing crazy, but maybe like 110. I think that's pretty good. It should give me enough clearance so that he can do his little movement from side to side. And if it doesn't give me enough clearance, then I'll just change it. No problem. Okay, so we're done with the scale of the null and whatnot. So I'm just going to, stop touching that. And we're going to set up the eye blinks first. So selecting all of the eye layers, so layers 4 through 7, going to hit letter T for opacity, and I'm going to turn on the stopwatch next to all of them. Okay, now these are diamond-shaped keyframes. They're linear keyframes. That means it's going to show a transition. Now with a blink like this, I don't want to show a transition. I don't want it to fade up and down. I want it to snap on, off. And to get that kind of snappy on-off movement, I got to change these into hold keyframes. So with those keyframes selected, animation menu, toggle hold keyframe. And toggle, it's just a Muppet word that means to go back and forth. So if you change your mind later, just go to the same spot again and toggle again, right? Now that looks goofy. Why are his eyes opened and closed at the same time? That doesn't make sense. So I'm going to select both of the eye blink layers and I'm going to drop that value to 0. Okay? All right, we are ready to animate. I can't even wait. This is going to be so amazing. So let's save our project before After Effects crashes and you curse me. File menu, save as, if you want to save it under new name. And I'm just going to save it in here, Goo-boy Project 2. All right, fabulous. He's ready to animate. It's going to be a good thing. So the way that I like to animate these characters is using hold keyframes themselves. We've already done the hold keyframe thing on opacity for our blinks, but what we want to do next is we want to set rotation, position, and scale keyframes on all the other eyes. Now it doesn't really matter whether my brow and mouth are in front of or behind the eye layers because they don't overlap. So I'm just dragging them downward, okay? And I'm going to select brow all the way down to foot left. And with my playhead at 0, I'm going to hit letter P, hold shift, and type S and R. So position, scale, rotation, PSR. And I'm going to turn on the stopwatches next to each one of those. And I only need to do it on one layer, okay? Then I can draw a big old box, and I'm doing it from the gray area over and then down. Chug, 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 selecting them all. Hello, hello, they're all selected. And I'm gonna go to animation, toggle hold, okay? So that is gonna be my first position for my character, all right? And I don't know, maybe like 12 frames later, I'm gonna have him over on one side. And the cool thing about hold keyframes is it's kind of like the traditional animation workflow of drawing your keys first and then going back in and doing your in-betweens. So I much prefer it this way. So I'm going to take his body layer and I'm going to rotate it, and I can do that with the rotation tool and just drag like this. And if yours is going a little slowly too, just, you know, maybe you can reduce the resolution, it'll go a little faster. Okay. And I'm just going to grab his hands and rotate them outward. Alternatively, if you have an extended keyboard, you can use the plus and minus keys on the number pad. Yeah, this is why I have an old school keyboard, friends. And I'm going to take this and move it up. And all this is happening at 12 frames, okay? And because I have position, scale, and rotation going on, I can change all those things, okay? And then these blobby bits are gonna rotate downward at that point in time. And you can also, or alternatively, hover over that second number on rotation there, which is your tilt, and just drag that slightly to the left, okay, to have it rotate in the negative direction. Don't mess with the first value because that's your spin, but definitely mess with that second value because that is your tilt. So, oops, that was the body, sorry. When it's zoomed in, I can't see so good. So then I'm going to take the other blobbies and rotate them as well. And blob number 1, you're like this, okay? And you can go between your keys just by hitting J and K on your keyboard. Okay, so I want this blob to be like way further down, and I want this blob to be maybe a little further down too. and rotate this up. And remember, with real bodies, they are so asymmetrical. So don't spend too much time trying to make everything perfect, because imperfection is actually perfection when it comes to character animation. So this character, when he goes over to the side, he is going to squash a little bit. So I'm just going to take the corner here on his body layer and push it down and out. Just a touch. Something like that. I think that's all right. Maybe that's too much. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back and forth and back and forth. And I think it would be cute if his eyebrow also maybe rotated down a little bit and moved down. So this is my first location, and there is my second location, right? And then I want him to go back to neutral. So the neutral position is this, right? Whatever we had originally established in the middle there. Okay, so let me just change this to fit. And this is where one of my best friend scripts comes in. It's called Key Cloner. I'm a huge fan. I will link you to it in the chat because it's brilliant. But Key Cloner makes the whole process of copying and pasting keyframes from multiple layers much, much easier. Key Cloner AE script. And it's not actually on aescripts.com. It's on this Konigs.com, whatever. You can get it for free, and then once you decide that it's useful, you can pay for it. But I usually will, try it out. If I love it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to make so much money off of this, you guys, then I pay for the thing. Now, if you have Key Cloner, here's what you can do. After you install it, you can install it just by going to File, Script, Run Script File, and just take yourself over there. And it's located inside, well, mine is located inside of Script UI panels. So Key Cloner, be there. If you've installed it properly, it'll show up in your window menu. But if you work for like a major corporation, you know how you have to get IT involved every time? That's why that File, Run Script File thing works so good. So Key Cloner, and what you can do is select all the keyframes that you want to copy from multiple layers and just hit clone. Amazing. Now if you don't have Key Cloner, see, look at this, just copied and pasted them, boom, fabulous. Now if you don't have Key Cloner, you're going to have to go through and copy and paste from each layer separately, because otherwise it starts duplicating layers. So I draw a little box around these first keyframes. Controller Command C and V. These guys, Controller Command C and V, and so on. And eventually everything will go back. Whoops, I got by accident. It will all eventually go back to neutral. See, look at him with his little leg up. But Kalika don't have time for that, so I'm going to take all that and I'm going to say clone, and it just copies it all the way across. Okay, so now we have neutral, squash, neutral, and then I'm going to do stretch. And the stretch, I'm going to take my big blob, or the body, and if you click on it with your selection tool in the composition viewer and you hit letter X, it'll actually scroll it up to the top, which is really nice and useful. And I'm going to take my rotation tool, hotkey W for a rotation. Yes, Erica, Key Cloner will automatically paste all your selected keyframes to wherever your playhead is. It's kind of magic. Yeah, it's one of my favorites. So then I'm going to move his head over this way. I'm going to take this leg and rotate it up like so, and then take his little arms and rotate those out. And remember, asymmetry is not a bad thing. And look, his leg looks like it's coming out of joint, and that is terrible. So just going to move that up with the selection tool. Okay? Yeah. And he can, he can have some flexibility. I could stick his leg over here. It's not like he's got a real skeleton I have to worry about. And then when he tilts like that, I want his little blobbies to rotate back this way. And here's this other little dude. Oh yeah, That's going to be cute. Okay, so now if I go back to the beginning and I just hit K, K, K. Okay, and I forgot to do the stretch. Gotta do stretch. So here's the body, and I'm gonna take the selection tool and just, whoops, grab the corner, pull it in and up. Okay. All right, so if I go back, that's his stretched version. And yeah, so you can fuss with this and, you know, get him to be even more jubilant with his arms. And if you wanted to, you could even stretch his arms. And the big advantage of working with Illustrator files is that you could actually make them infinitely large or stretched or whatever. And because they're vector, you're not going to lose any resolution, which is amazing. Now, to ensure that this actually stays vector, you need to select all your layers and turn on this little starburst looking switch, which is called the continuously rasterize. And you click that and it's just going to sharpen everything up. Okay. All right. So now I've got squash, well, neutral, squash, neutral, stretch, and then I want to go back to squash. So key cloner to the rescue once more, and I'm going to select all these guys all the way down, 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 and clone. Takes a moment. Ta-da! All right, so now that's ready. Okay, so the next step is a necessary evil, and it took me a moment to figure out why it was so important. And what you need to do is actually make sure that every pose that we have here has keyframes on all the body parts. So I'm going to advance to 12 frames, and I'm going to make sure that all the parts have keyframes on position, scale, and rotation. And I'm just going down and I'm clicking these little dips, okay? And you can expand this timeline window to fill your whole interface frame just by hitting the tilde key, which is right below your escape key. Okay, and I'm just gonna like scrub on down. And it's cool because After Effects is like, oh yeah, you already had keyframes on some of those guys and you didn't have them on some other ones of those guys. I know what you meant. It's very, very kind that way. All right, beautiful. So now I've got keyframes for all of those. And here comes the magic. You ready? We're going to shorten our work area. Just taking that blue bracket and ending it right here. And we're going to take all these keyframes. And remember when I told you about what the word toggle means? You can go to toggle hold keyframe, change all of those guys, not the blank, but all the other body parts to linear keyframes, and look what you end up with. Not too bad. So I'm going to add one other thing here. I'm going to take the eyebrow and I'm just going to rotate it a little bit and pull it up a little bit because that's going to be cute. And here it was down a little bit. Yeah, so that's going to be nice. And then I'm going to add a blink because I didn't do that yet. So I select all of my eye blink layers and I'm going to hit T for opacity. And I'm going to advance and just give him one blink. Because if people blink too much, you know how you like just don't trust them? So we don't want that to happen with our little Goo-boy. So around like a second and change, I'm going to change the blink layers to be 100% opacity. And the eye left and right to be 0. And aw, he looks like he's sleeping. And then like 4 frames later, which I can accomplish just by clicking on the time code here and typing +4, I'm just going to change eye left and right to 0, the blink ones, and change the regular eye left and right to 100%. So here's what we got. Okay, we're not done yet. we've got to do a little bit of delay on some of these body parts because they're looser. So think about it. Those little gooey bits are looser than the main body of the character, and maybe even the arms are a little bit looser. So because of that, what I like to do is I take the blobs and I take all of their animation and I just delay it by a couple of frames. So you could do that either by just clicking a couple of times like this. That'll work. Or you can do Option and left and right arrows to retime your keyframes. Let me just play this back. And I think that blob number 2 should actually have a little bit more delay when it goes over here. So I'm just going to give it a touch more and a touch more here. And let's play that back. Okay, now I could go to town with taking this and, you know, adding eases and all kinds of stuff. You could do it too. Eases are easy enough to do. Get it? Easy eases. Anyway, so you could select all these first keyframes and you can change them to eases using Keyframe Assistant Easy Ease. And that just means that it's gonna like start slow on that. And then this is like a nice little pose, so maybe I'll give that an ease as well. And you can do F9 or right click, Keyframe Assist, Easy Ease. You know, in the middle keyframe there, I'm not going to give it any kind of ease, but these end bits, yeah, I'll probably give them an ease. All right, and in case if you're wondering, like, why did you like put the end of the work area right at the very tail end there? It's because otherwise it actually stops moving. So you have to make sure that the end of your work area is like kissing the end right there. All right, okay, so let's give those last guys an ease as well. And F9 is my shortcut. And if you wanted to add an extra bounce, you totally could. You could just leave that character over there for a moment if you wanted, like just by kind of duplicating this body these body keyframes, and then give it a little bit of extra bounce on the antennae. You have options. Pretty fun. We're not quite done with this. I want to add a few more things. Feel free to go back in and add stuff later on. And here's what we're going to do. So I think this guy is pretty much done, right? His 2-second loop. So I'm going to shorten this composition to just the work area by going to Composition menu, Trim Comp to Work Area. That's just going to edit it so it's just that short. And I'm going to make a new composition for Instagram. And in the width, I'm going to set it to 1080, height 1080, and I think since it's a 2-second loop, I'll probably also just make this a 2-second loop. And I'm going to call this Goo-boy IG. Oh yeah. I'm going to take my Goo-boy animated and throw him down. And I've also, let me just fit him. Yeah, okay. I've also got to get his background. And I've shared his background with you guys. It's this GooBG. I'm going to drag and drop GooBG right in there. And I'm going to put that behind the pre-composed Goo-boy animation. Okay, and GooBG is quite big. Wow, that's quite big. So layer menu, transform, I'm gonna do fit to comp height. Yeah, oh look, it looks like there's like a little spotlight on him. That is just a story waiting to happen. So I'm gonna take Goo-boy and I'm gonna place him maybe just a little bit up. And I want there to be a drop shadow. Now, the problem with the drop shadow, like I want the drop shadow to be kind of like at an angle and this and that. It's going to be nice. I've got to duplicate this guy though first. So I edit, duplicate, and the duplicated version I'm going to call DS for drop shadow. And in the effects and presets, I'm going to type in fill. And I'm going to go to the generate menu, or the generate category. I'm simply going to double click fill, and I'm warning you, it's going to look terrible, so don't be scared. Double click to add it. It looks terrible. I'm going to change the color to black or dark gray. I think black is probably good. Okay, and then I want to kind of flip him like downward. Okay, so an easy way to flip your characters is to hit S for scale, and if you want to do a vertical flip, you have to change just the second number. But the problem is that if you just change the second number now, both numbers are going to change and it's going to flip and flop. See that? He's like up in the sky. He's like, hey, here I am. That's not what we wanted at all. So we're going to uncheck the little chain link that says constrain proportions, and we're just going to change that second number to a negative. Okay, so now it's upside down. And I'm going to take my selection tool and I'm going to move it down like this, move this layer down. Okay, and I'm going to put it behind Goo-boy so that he's stepping like on his shadow, because that looks better. And then I'm going to give it a linear wipe effect. Linear wipe. Linear wipe, who I have historically called the unsung hero of After Effects. So I'm going to double click linear wipe from the transition category. And, oh, see ya, Austin. And then here's 180. And I'm just going to increase the transition completion. See that? It's like wiping him off from the bottom. And then once like a bunch of him is wiped off, I increase the feather. See that? So now we've got like this feathered thing. I'm going to wipe a decent amount of him off because I want this to kind of sit in the background better. I'm going to give it a Gaussian blur. You know, allergies. And from the blur and sharpen category, with that drop shadow layer selected, double click it. And the blurriness, I'm going to set it to like 5. And I'm going to do a couple of other little things. T for opacity, drop the opacity a touch. And then I'm going to bring up my blending modes. Remember those from Photoshop, the blending modes? Like screen to get rid of black, and multiply to blend what you got with what's underneath. So multiply is what I'm going to choose for this. And that just sort of brings back the texture. See that? How there's like texture through that shadow? I can increase the Gaussian blur amount a little bit. That just looks like really cute, and he's like pretty much ready. One last thing that I added in my promotional materials for this particular demo was an overlay, and the overlay I added, it was a really big file, so I'll share with you just some still images from it. But the overlay is this confetti bokeh. And when I put it right on top, it looked really just excessive. Like, I'll show you what it looks like. Like, look at this. Like, really, do we really need all that? Like, probably not. We just need a still image. So what I did was I took my playhead and I dragged this all the way to the beginning, and I just threw the confetti bokeh on top. And then I got rid of the color using hue and saturation. And drop the saturation to negative something. Yeah, just a little bit of color. Looks kind of nice. And I changed this to screen to get rid of the black. And finally, I just chose an attractive frame. Like, you don't want something that's too excessive. I'm just going to drop the opacity a touch. And I'm going to freeze frame this video. So layer menu, transform, oh, sorry, time, time, freeze frame. And I'll share with you this particular frame. It's frame 5116 because it's a really big file. I'll throw it into the same folder, not to worry. But yeah, for all intents and purposes, this little dude is ready to go. One last thing you might want to consider, however, is size. So if this little Goo-boy is not the right size for your taste, what you could do is parent the drop shadow to the boy, like this. Take the Goo-boy's anchor point, put it down at the bottom, right? And then hit S for scale and just scale him up a touch. Yeah, that is pretty good. All right, friends. So I'm going to save this finished version of Goo-boy to our Google Drive folder so you can inspect it and recreate it if you want to. If you end up using Goo-boy on your Instagram, I'll put into the description the Keith Vincent's Instagram handle. Earthling Keith is his website, and he was the character designer who was kind enough to let us use Goo-boy. And if you make something with this technique and you share it on Instagram, please also add the hashtag or tag me with Kalika Effects. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But I hope you have a fabulous day or night wherever you are. And like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you don't mind, and tell your friends. And I'll see you next week. Next week, I will be here on Wednesday night instead of Monday night. Okay? So for the next like 6 weeks, I'll be on Wednesday nights. Alrighty, great to see you all. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye. Have a good one.